Hi again, my name is Stephen. In the last video, we looked at how to start our lessons effectively, and today we're going to talk about how to end our lessons effectively. So, think about your lessons. How do your lessons end? Do they end like this? Is it chaos with kids running out of the room? Think about what we can do to make the end of our lessons effective. So, firstly, I want you to think about how we usually start our lessons. We usually start them with a warm-up. But what is the opposite of a warm-up? That's right, it's a cool down. A cool down is a period of calm used to wrap up the lesson and say goodbye. So let's think about this period of calm, this cool down. Let's have a look at some do's and don'ts. Firstly, do. Carefully plan the end of your lessons. In your mind, in your lesson plan, always think about what you're going to do at the end of the lesson. Always review the key points of the lesson. Always provide feedback on performance and behavior. And always set a positive tone. Finally, you want to prepare students for their next class. Don'ts. Things not to do. Don't play a high energy game until the bell goes. I know it's very easy as a teacher. We're playing a game, we keep playing, and then suddenly the bell goes and lesson's over and the kids run out of the room. Don't do this. Don't set homework at the last minute. You should be setting homework all the way through the class. Don't feedback too negatively on behavior. Remember, you want to set a very positive tone at the end of class. And finally, don't allow students to rush out of the classroom. So, let's look at wrapping up the lesson, reviewing what we've learned today. I always ask my students, what have you learned today? And you want your students to, especially young learners, you want them to remember the vocabulary. Maybe you can do a quick review using TPR, that means using the actions to review the vocab. And you want students to remember the key grammar structure from today's lesson. So ask them, what have you learned today? Secondly, we want to provide feedback. Now there are two kinds of feedback. Firstly, we want to feedback about their performance, especially in using the language. Now, throughout the lesson, you've been listening to your students. Maybe you hear some pronunciation problems. Maybe you hear some problems with grammar. And this is a great opportunity to give the students feedback on their pronunciation and on their grammar as a class. Don't be negative, be very positive with their performance. The next thing to do is to provide feedback. There are two kinds of feedback that you should give at the end of the lesson. The first kind is to give feedback about your students' performance. Now, throughout the lesson, you've been listening to your students speak and you've been monitoring their work. And maybe you picked up some problems with their pronunciation or with their grammar. And this is the perfect time to give feedback to the whole class on their pronunciation problems or on any grammar problems you hear. Be very positive with your feedback. Don't be too negative. The other kind of feedback to give is about their behavior. Again, be positive. Don't be too negative. When you give your feedback, you can say, you were a little bit noisy today, so next time let's try and be a little bit quieter. Try and give your feedback in a positive manner. After the feedback, we look at some goodbye routines. As I talked to you before, routines are crucial when teaching young learners. And it's very important to have routines in place at the end of the lesson. So for example, you may ask your students to tidy the classroom. I know when I've been into classrooms sometimes after someone's lesson and the room is a mess. It's always appreciated if the students can tidy the classroom, and it gives them a feeling of achievement when they do that. You may want to sing a goodbye song. It doesn't have to be long. It could be a very short song. Saying goodbye itself should have a routine. You should have a set way of saying goodbye to your students so that in their mind they understand what is happening. Finally, and I think this is very important, is you shouldn't allow your students to rush out of the classroom in a chaotic way. You want your students to leave in an orderly manner. Now, how can you do that? After I ask the students to tidy the classroom, they must sit behind their desk with their arms crossed and sit quietly. Once they're quiet, I will ask the students to leave row by row. And when they stand up, they have to put their chair under the desk and they have to leave quietly. Now, at the start of the school year with young learners, this might take some time, but after a month or two, your students will know what to do and they'll leave the classroom in a very organized way. This helps the students to calm down and sets them up to go to the next class and be ready to learn. So, in summary, carefully plan the end of your lessons. Understand what activity you're going to do at the end to review the content of the lesson. Give feedback on performance and behavior in a positive manner. Use a routine to say goodbye in a calm and organized manner. Okay, so that's all for today. I want you to remember that ending your lesson is as important as starting your lesson. Young learners can remember the start and the end of the lesson the best. So it's very important to get these things right. Thanks very much for listening. Bye-bye.